about 15 minutes or so.
So let me screen through it real quick then.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about basic operation. Here, I'll let you get it.
Okay, so tensioner, what's below your belt tensioner is going to be a micro switch. Okay, that micro switch, if it's not engaged, nothing behind that motor is going to work. That motor's not going to work, nothing else is going to work. You're not going to get heat or anything. Okay, so you got that. Of course, you're going to have your suspension rollers for your drum in the back. Mostly on Samsung, you'll find also on the front, which is, this is your front cover right here. You'll find suspension rollers on them also. Okay?
And really quickly here, let's talk about, there's 3 essential elements for any dryer to operate, right? You need 3 essential functions. You need heat, right? Well, power is kind of a given, right? Like that's going to come in. You need heat. You need airflow, right? And you have to have the rotation, right? Because you have to have something that keeps the clothes moving in a fashion that lets said airflow and heat move through it, right? So think about those 3 things. In any dryer, those are the 3 essential factors that you have to make a dryer work. So airflow, heat production, and rotation tumbling. Okay? Those 3 things. So keep that in mind. So any customer complaint you get with a dryer, think within the confines of those 3 essential factors for a dryer. Customer calls you up, they have an electric dryer. They say, hey, it's running, but I'm not getting any heat. It's not heating up, the clothes aren't hot.
Could that
right?
be because there's too much clothes in the dryer?
Not necessarily, it wouldn't be from the clothes. So most commonly, about 65% of the jobs you're gonna go out on for Samsung are typically education related. So something on a dryer, no heat call, typically would be something like the settings, right? If you've ever looked at your dryer, everybody's kind of looked at a dryer at least at some point in their lives, right? Yeah. Think about what setting might cause a no heat situation. Airflow, right? That is, you'd be surprised, super common. Somebody messed with it. I have to get into arguments with my kids all the time because they want to be helpful, right? And do the laundry, but they don't clean out the lint trap. They don't put the settings on right. They just throw it in and hit a start button, right? So a lot of customers get these machines, especially as newer machines get more and more technologically advanced. People don't know what those settings are and they don't hit those settings. But remember, those 3 essential factors: heat production, airflow, and tumbling rotation. Okay? All right. So, and think within that though, right? Because everything that's up here on the screen, from the motor that turns it to the wheels that allow the support, from the fan motor that blows the air through it, everything is in line with those 3 essential factors. Okay? Everything produces those 3 essential factors.
So don't forget that here on the lid screen, you gotta clean that, but this also will get clogged. And sometimes drive the vacuum and clean it out. It'll stop the airflow, and then your vent going out of the house, if it's clogged because that lid is going past your lid filter, and it gets damp, it's going to get to the inside of that, and they have to clean that out. We can go to the next slide. Okay, who ever seen a top load dryer?
Small apartment. I've seen this before.
Yeah, they're very few, very far in between. I think Ferguson's the only one that builds one.
Top load.
So, you probably won't ever see a top load. Okay, front load, of course. Go ahead. And then the combination washer and dryer, which are out now.
What? So we have 1 tub.
Yeah.
That's 1 tub, and it does the wash and the dry in 1 tub.
That's crazy.
I'm serious. Guys, calm down, calm down. I know you're excited, but, all right, guys, calm it down. We gotta get on through these. All right, so let's just calm it down a little bit. But yes, I am serious. They are out. You even have dryers with silk system refrigeration in them now that's coming out. So you will see that stuff in the field. Samsung does have one out. Next one. Okay. Heat sources, you got the electric heat, you got the gas heat. Of course, the way the electric heat works, guys, is you've got L1 and L2. L1 goes to your motor. You have a centrifugal switch, which you need to write that down, centrifugal switch, because it will be on your test.
We're going to show them that on this.
Okay?
I'm going to show you guys a couple different things.
So we're gonna show you where the centrifugal switch and everything is on this here in a second, but let me keep moving. Then we'll go to the centrifugal switch, and then we'll go over to your heating element for your L1. Your L2 is going to come through your relay switch on your board, right straight over to your heating element. So your L2 switch 240 volts on the heating element. And then your gas heat, of course, your gas heat's going to have an igniter. It's going to have usually a tri-setup solenoid valve system for your gas. And then it's going to have a flame sensor on it. Okay? Let me go ahead and go to the next slide while you're setting that up. All right, so let's go on through. Of course, you know you've got your basic components. You've got your airflow, your basic components, your dryer cycle, and your interior components. The difference from gas dryers is the amount of power, 240 to 120 for gas, and quick installation, no dedicated gas line required for electric dryers, and usually the cost less to purchase than a gas model. And usually that's very true. If you ever go into a store and you look at a gas model, they're probably going to be worth from $100 to $250 more depending on the dryer.
Could you run through those slides real quick? Or snap a picture of those last.
Just record it.
Hey guys, I'm going to get you all a copy of this as well.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it's great you guys are taking pictures. I don't want you guys to be too worried about the pictures. I am going to get you guys a copy of this. So.
Oh, let me go back here for just 1 second. See that 4-pump plug?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to see in most of the new customers' homes. It has a neutral and a ground, as well as the 2 highs. So that's the new code for that, so you will see that in customers' homes. Okay? All right, airflow, as we were talking about airflow, of course you've got your inlet. Okay, it goes through. So your inlet's coming in, coming through your fan. So it's going to suck through your heating element, up through your drum, out through your filter, and into your outside. It's a very easy process. It's the basic process on your airflow. The heat will be supplied. Okay, and then it'll go into the dryer. It is heated, so the common effect also counts to let the clothes spread apart. So that the heat and air going through there is helping to dry those clothes. Okay, so that's just part of the process. And it's fitted through a duct to the outside. And we'll get into ducting and stuff a little bit more when you get into the dryer. Where what the leaks are and how much an elbow takes away is about 6 feet every time that happens. Okay, so every time you put an elbow in that ducting, you're going to lose 6 feet of length that you can actually have on that duct. Okay, it's going to be permanently closed to accomplish the drying cycle. Okay, which is used by the belt with the motor tensioner, and the tension switch. Okay, combo dry. There's a time dry, automatic dry, permanent press, air dry. Air dry is going to be for things like sweaters and stuff that you will absolutely do. I want to put any heat to. Time dry is going to be just simply put it up on its time cycle and let it dry. Okay, you can suck the heat on it. Automatic dry. Automatic dry is going to be by moisture sensors. We'll have a moisture sensor in there. So you're going to get it past that moisture sensor. It's going to send moisture. It's going to either add time or take time away. That's why you don't want to mix loads.
So real quick on the moisture sensor. So this is a little moisture sensor on here. Anybody having a guess of what this does and how it dictates the moisture?
By temperature.
No? Conductivity. Right? So you have 2 little paddles here, right? 2 little metal paddles. And when you're closed, they're wet, right? And they're turning inside and tumbling. When wet clothing hits this little piece right here, it then creates the circuit. It completes the circuit. And as long as that is completing the circuit, it is telling the PCB, hey, there are still wet clothes in here. Right? As your clothes dry, and this is where you'll get a lot of customers complaining, hey, my stuff isn't drying. It's like, well, what are you drying? Well, I'm drying my comforter, right? Well, if you got a comforter, it's pretty thick, right? Or thick, lots of thick wool clothing or something like that. The outside is getting warm and it's drying, but there's nothing hitting this to create that circuit to allow the machine to say, hey, there's still wet stuff in here. So they get the big clothing out, the big clumps of clothing or you know, bedding or something, and everything's wet on the inside. That's where it's really important to educate your customer the difference between time dry and automatic dry or sensor dry. Because if they're just relying on that sensor dry, which 99% of the time people are, it's not going to finish that cycle properly. Because it's going to say, hey, seems like everything's dry, nothing's hitting my moisture and triggering that sensor, and so it's going to shut down.
It's a common service call, what you just said. Sometimes I'll get upset with the dryer, why doesn't it know that? It should know that, but.
Well, a lot of times they mix their stuff, they get the t-shirts and light stuff that's coming to the outside so it's dry, while the jeans and towels in the middle are not. So, and the way to test that, guys, is you can put that in test mode, lick your finger, put it across there, it's going to sense the moisture in your finger, it's going to go from 0 to 1. Let loose of it, it's going to go back to 0. Just a quick, easy test.
You can take a wet rag.
It's not going to shock you or anything because it's literally just connectivity across it from
Sorry for that.
So Haas tells you to touch it with your fingers and up.
Yeah, you're just you're completing the circuit, right? It's just two kind of live things. It's not electrified, but you're just creating that little bit of connectivity that tells the machine there is a moisture present still inside the drum that needs to be dry. So keep going.
I had a customer that installed it,
Take a picture.
just right quick, this is a good one.
Well,
Okay.
still, we gotta keep moving, we got break
Yeah.
here in about 5 minutes, so
Yeah.
I gotta keep moving.
Sorry, man. We'll come back to the story.
We'll come back to the story later. Okay, so he will continue until the temperature in the drum reaches, the selected cutout setting of the thermostat or the thermistor. Okay, so that's what's gonna happen on the automatic dry. When the thermostat or thermistor is satisfied, the heat shuts off and the timer motor is activated. Okay, market press. Go ahead and go to the next one. It's pretty temperature controlled. Back it up just a little bit. Let me take a picture of that real quick. Oops.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you guys a copy of it too. So.
And then air dry is literally nothing more than air dry. The cycle uses the air from the outside to dry the clothes. Again, that's for like sweaters and stuff that you don't want to shrink, lingerie, different things like that. You don't want to do that on. Okay, it's got the heating element. It's not used whatsoever on the air dry cycle. Okay, the proper cycle is selected. The dryer start button is pressed. The timer switch, thermistors, all that work together to make the dry cycle work. Air is pulled through the dryer. At the lower rear, or sometimes at the top, in the back, it depends on where it's at, and drawn through your filter and back to the outside. The air is pulled through the heating drum, so as you see over here, when we put this up here, we'll show you where the gas and stuff burns through all this, so you'll see that. Okay, and then you will push out the exhaust and duct, a drive motor. Of course, we've already talked about it. It has the belt, which goes around the drum, keeps it turning, which also works along with that pulley, which is called the tensioner, and the micro switch otherwise, and the clockwise rotation only. Okay, and the belt wraps around the drum, the blower wheel.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back here.